And away we go. So there we are. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome to Coffee Talk. That is at Coffee Talk Live on YouTube, as well as Prepper University on YouTube, where the live portion takes place at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, because I am in the South, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on Twitter or fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. As we get ready to jump off into whatever it is that is going on in the world today. Lots of interesting things going on in the world. Most of them bad, unfortunately. Most of them bad. Change is not always a good thing, especially when governments are in charge. And it is what it is. So we'll take a look at the news here in a moment and have a little conversation about that. And naturally, for those of you who are listening and not able to watch, I will read through as many of the comments on the live portion as is reasonable so that you can keep up with the conversation as I read off some questions or statements from some of the viewers. And I'll go ahead and acknowledge some of the people who have chimed in thus far. I see Helter is here, Dragon, D-Lo, Gary Smith, Fluke Man is here, Rodney is here from New Zealand, Sam Levy, you're pronouncing it Levy or Levi, says howdy. Preparedness Veteran is here, Holly is here, Boogers is chimed in this afternoon as we get ready to jump off and take a look at what's going on in the world today. See Dusty sitting in the background. For those of you who can see, Dusty has joined me, as well as Miss Kitty is here. I know you don't get to see Miss Kitty too often. She's sitting on the floor next to me. And we'll go ahead and start popping open some of the news articles, some things you may know about, some things you may not have seen, and see what's what in the world today. And this first article comes from the Western Journal. Naturally, you're going to talk about Xinping because he visited California, and people were pissed off about that. They were pissed off about it because they scrubbed the streets, they put up barriers, and they hung out Chinese flags. And here you see Apple, BlackRock, Pfizer CEOs fawn over China's communist ruler Jinping and give a standing ovation. What did you think they were going to do? Don't get upset about it now. For many Americans, Chinese President Xi Jinping's visit to San Francisco this week was an utterly surreal one. On a strictly visual level, many onlookers struggled with the image of a sea of Chinese flags adorning a U.S. sidewalk. San Francisco today during Chinese President Jinping's arrival. Not a single American flag in sight. President Xi, who was ultimately met with a rather warm welcome from President Joe Biden, who crawled on the stage on his hands and knees. No, he didn't actually, but it felt that way. Was in America for a number of reasons, including a somewhat ominous dinner with some of the top business leaders in the country. According to the Wall Street Journal, she had a fanciful dinner with top American business leaders in an attempt to recruit them to help ease tensions that have exploded between the U.S. and China. China is pursuing high-quality development in the U.S. and the United States, is revitalizing its economy. She said at the dinner, there is plenty of room for our cooperation. And in the meantime, they took all their pandas back. I read that story earlier, remember? The dinner included current business magnates like Apple's Tim Cook, BlackRock's Larry Fink. That's a good name for the CEO of BlackRock, Fink. As well as representatives from Boeing, FedEx, and Pfizer, among others. The group, whose dinner took place in downtown San Francisco, reportedly gave Xi a standing ovation when he went on stage, and the rhetoric following the event echoed the sentiment. And people are pissed off about that. I will tell you, though, when you have a visiting diplomat, you are going to put their flags out. If it is a president, you are going to block off streets. And when he comes out on stage, there very likely will be a standing ovation. Now, what makes it unusual is the fact that there were no American flags present apparently. Also, the insult that they cleaned up San Francisco before he arrived, but could never be bothered to do it before. They left it excrement in the streets, homeless people, drug addicts wandering around like zombies. Nobody gave a damn. Now all of a sudden, let's clean this up real quick, as if he doesn't know that's what San Francisco looks like. And Flukeman says, finally got you some cat food, 3 bags of 30-pound Friskies seafood. Really? You're sending that to the P.O. box? Wow, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. I really appreciate it. I do get stuff at the P.O. box from time to time. Sometimes people send cat supplies or cat food. Always helps. Always helps when you can send when people can send cat food of any kind, bagged food or soft food. So thank you very much, Fluke Man. I appreciate it. I'll keep an eye out for that. Preparedness says, I would love to know what she was thinking when he was interacting with Biden. Why aren't you on your knees, you dog? You owe me. Frankie says, what do you expect? Biden has sold out the U.S. to China, so why would there be any American flags? Yeah, that's kind of the feeling. And Dragon says, cozying up to regressive dictators equals profit. Exactly. Exactly. And then you have all of these companies are going to crawl and suck up and carry on and so on and so forth. That's the way things are done. And like I said, it's not unusual for a visiting diplomat to, again, you have their flags out. When they land at the airport, you might play their national anthem. It's just an issue of protocol, but there should be American government representation as well. And like they said, they didn't see any American flags out there, and there should have been. That's the right protocol. Bingo says probably thought he could tell him anything and Biden would believe it. Well, I mean, I'm sure they have their secret deals. I'm sure they have their secret deals going on. And that's what we've come to expect. There's a lot of secret deals, a lot of dirty dealings, handshakes behind closed doors, money exchanging hands, little sneaky business. People will sell out for almost anything, Again, there was a lot of people that went out and took the poke for free cups of coffee, free donuts. It's amazing how little a person's soul is worth these days. At least once upon a time, you could get 30 pieces of silver for it. Helter says there was some fighting outside the hotel where Xinping was staying at. I bet there was. There's probably some protesters trying to stir something up there, and that's not going to work. That is not going to fly. He's going to be very well protected while he's here. That's the way things go. And that's why California put up security. And there you go. State of the Union has this article, California builds a wall, but not to protect Americans. No, it was to protect Xinping. That's what they're doing here. Here you see, and this is around the areas where he's going to be. They're setting up gates. There was very heavy security. It says security barriers were erected around San Francisco's Moscone Center for the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit, aimed at protecting foreign leaders, including Chinese President Xi Jinping and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. President Joe Biden is set to meet with Xi during the summit. The Secret Service is involved in security measures, implementing vehicle exclusion zones and clearing homeless encampments from the city, which they've already done. Governor Gavin Newsom confirmed that the city cleanup was prompted by the APEC summit, although he emphasized that the Clean California initiative began in 2021. Oh, so you've been planning for this for a while, have you? Quote, I know folks say, oh, they're just cleaning up the place because all those fancy leaders are coming into town. That's true because it's true. But it's also true for months and months and months prior to APEC, we've been having conversations, claimed Governor Newsom. Conversations. Well, you know what? That is a perfect example. I'm glad he said that, of the art of equivocation. That is, you often see politicians do this. They tell you a truth or part of the truth, just enough to be honest, but without telling you what's really up. And that's what he did here. For months and months prior, he says it right here, it's true, for months and months and months prior to APEC, we've been having conversations. I'm sure you've had many conversations. That doesn't mean that you planned on cleaning up a damn thing. Okay? Not until APEC told you to. You got to love how they do that. Remember, always pay attention to the wording. Always pay attention to the wording. Again, this predates APEC, but APEC is a forcing function, and that's always a positive thing. Nuisance told reporters, and yeah, I'm saying nuisance on purpose. Adding anytime there is a large event, it just focuses the mind, keeps everybody on the same agenda, and we always want to put our best face forward. But the goal here is it's not a situational commitment. So what does that mean? He says Newsom claimed this is a long-term strategy. It began in July of 2021. But also by claiming it's not a situational commitment, that means that they're probably not going to maintain it after this is over. They'll be done. Oh my God. Let me see here. I'll catch up a few more of the comments really quickly, or I'll try. I'll try to. Bingo said, oh, I read that. Excuse me. And Flukeman acknowledges, he says yes to P.O. Box. Again, very much appreciated, Flukeman. Preparedness as Biden went off script in his speech, his advisors were cringing really bad. I bet you. I bet you. And he picks up that mic and steps away. It's all over, folks, because he's just going to trail off and you won't know what's going on. Helter says, that, oh, I read that too. I don't know why I'm jumping around here. Bingo says he told Biden he didn't want war, then told him not to arm Taiwan because they will take it back. Why would anyone believe a word he says? It's his job to lie and kill. Indeed. And Gary Edwards is here. Glad you could make it today. Bingo says, did you hear his press conference? You couldn't understand a word he mumbled. Biden's mind is long gone. But the puppet strings are intact. Bingo, that's what it's all about. Flukeman says America doesn't China. Why are the West kissing their butts? I don't get it. I guess you mean America doesn't like China. No, they don't. They don't like them. They don't trust them. They don't want to do business with them anymore. But we're not the ones that make the decision. And Gary says Biden is a Walter puppet. And Monkey says you can clean the place, but you still have the crimes, like how people get their room messy, but really clean up when friends come over, and after that it's trash again. And Gary says, "Oh, I read that. I'm doing that all over the place." Frankie says, "Yes, they're having conversations about screwing over Californians with more draconian rules and higher taxes. Can't forget the taxes." Dragon says, sounds like this is a good opportunity for the southern border to send a few hundred buses and jetliners full of migrants to San Francisco. There you go. Fill it back up. Rodney said ScrewTube has automatically removed one of his comments, and he confirmed by checking the chat in a private window. Here we go again. I'm sorry that happens. I wish I could control that for you, because, unless you're being a real ass, you can say whatever you want. You know what I mean? And Paul says, head on a swivel, brother. Semper Fi. Semper Fi. Love your show, brother. Keep it up. Much appreciated, Paul. Much appreciated. And Cyberjack Sr. as well as Spectre are here. Glad you could make it. Just talking about Governor Nuisance, pretending like they've been planning on cleaning up San Francisco for years. Oh, we've been having conversations. Sure you have, buddy. I believe you. Conversations about what? What you're going to have for lunch? How you're going to screw people over with more taxes? Speaking about screwing people over with money, and since sweet old, dear old, lovable old, trusty old armchair Cherry from Pee Wee Herman, Uncle Joe Biden was mentioned. Here's another example of him playing both ends. And this comes from the National Review. 10 billion for Iran. Just another day at Foggy Bottom. Aren't we bombing their facilities? But we're going to send them money. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Where's the transparency now, folks? On Tuesday, the White House did the indefensible again. It issued a waiver allowing the Iranian regime to access another 10 billion in funds that had previously been unavailable to it. Even before Hamas's brutal massacre of Israeli citizens, that move would have been national security malpractice. But given everything we know and everything the White House has acknowledged about Iran's long-standing support for Hamas and its likely role in helping to prepare the group for October 7th, this move is unfathomable, except from the warped perspective of the Obama-Biden fixation on accommodating Iran. Wow. The State Department issued waiver allows Iraq to pay its bills for electricity generated by Iran under a previous arrangement that had been around under the Trump administration. Iraq paid an escrow account that Tehran was not allowed to access. The State Department granted Iran access for the first time this past July. This week, it reissued the waiver to the tune of more than $10 billion. The administration stated justification for it is incredibly cynical. They echo the spin used to defend the deal for the $6 billion in sanctions relief it advanced earlier this year in the weeks leading up to October 7th, that none of the money in question can be used for purposes other than paying for humanitarian goods. They fell for that again. The obvious problem with that explanation also applies here. Money is fungible, and Tehran will no doubt adjust for the new humanitarian funds by diverting more spending for maligned purposes. And after the $6 billion was released, after they made the Iranian leader pinky swear that he, honest to God, double cross his heart and hope to die and stick a needle in his eye, would under no circumstances use the money inappropriately and absolutely use it for humanitarian needs. When he was interviewed after getting the money, said, "It's our money, we'll do whatever the hell we want," and thumbed his nose at the White House. Oh, well, tough, we got the money now. And they give him another 10 billion with another little pinky swear promise and make a little chain of daisies and wear it on your head. Seriously? Seriously, they fell for that again. Or did they? Or did they? What's really going on? What's really going on? Flukeman says, sorry, I mean, America doesn't need China. They can do business with many other countries. That is also true, Flukeman. They can do business with many other countries. There's a lot of opportunity out there. Gary says, if America needs more money, they just print more. So why not print more to give away? Well, eventually you end up with the money being absolutely worthless. Helter said 60 Minutes ran a segment on Iran's state-sponsored terrorism last night. There's solid evidence Iran is hiring hitmen to go after dissidents. The 10 billion aid is only going to enable them further. Indeed, unless your intention is to further the conflict. And Preparedness says 10 billion. Have they something on America? Or at least the Biden administration? And Sven says, playing both sides of the conflict, we've become an unserious and gross country. Yeah. Yes, indeed. And that's exactly what's going on, because he's sending money to both sides at the same time and not even hiding it. Not even hiding it. That's incredible. And what can we do? What can we do about it? We're really kind of helpless here. How do you fight that? How do you protest it? How do you push back against it? Not pay your taxes? That's impossible. There's no way you can not pay it. You're going to go out there with picket signs? Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Rodney says the current U.S. administration is the worst in living memory. We're closer to a global conflict than at any time since the height of the Cold War. And Monkey says most transparent administration at work, folks. Yeah, because they're not even trying to hide it. They're not even trying to hide it. And then Merv said, why do I feel safer with the Chinese supreme leader here? Because nobody's going to bomb us while he's here. They're scared of China. Gary said the money's only worth what they tell you it is, so they'll just lie about it because they're all in on it. And then Dragon says taxpayer money just got pissed away. I wonder what would happen if every taxpayer gives the middle finger to the government in April. It's impossible, though. You can't not pay. They'll take it from you because it's all electronic. They take it right out of your check. They'll take it right out of your bank. They'll take it right out of your credit union, out of your stocks, whatever you got, they'll take it. Stocks, bonds, it doesn't matter. They'll come and they'll empty your house. They'll sell your house. They're completely ruthless. Remember, the IRS took one of my properties when I still lived in Kansas and never recorded it. Never recorded it. To this day, I don't know if they applied it to my back taxes. I have no way of verifying it. They're completely ruthless and have no oversight. So there's no way you can really buck them. There's no way you can really buck them. Speaking of wasting tax money, and we've been talking about this the last couple of days because this guy can't stay out of trouble. And this, of course, is the Washington Examiner with this article: New York City mayor to announce extremely painful budget cuts, including New York Police Department hiring freeze. We already talked about the last few days that he has cut off 250 school safety officers, that is armed school police. And then, because there was huge backlash for that from the community, he said, oh, well, my solution is that you need to volunteer. You come and volunteer at the school, put your ass on the line. And it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. Frankie says the only way to not pay taxes is to not work or own property. Yeah, you'll have to be homeless, so then they can't bother you. Monkey says even if you go to another country to live at, the IRS still has its tentacles on you. Yeah, you can't unless you denounce your citizenship. And Fluke Man says Biden can just claim he has dementia and knows nothing about the 10 billion. And that's something I've speculated on in the past, that plausible deniability. The whole thing could be an act. You never know. And then if he ever has to go up before Congress, all of a sudden, oh, well, he's not coherent. Getting into the article here, New York City Mayor Eric Adams is expected to announce extremely painful budget cuts on Thursday. They could include a hiring freeze at the New York City Police Department, caused by an influx of asylum seekers in the city. Asylum seekers. Each city agency is expected to see a 5% budget decrease in the next round of budget cuts and another 5% decrease in January. The change to public safety is a big upset given the high crime rates in the city and the shrinking police force. Remember, they fired a lot of police and firefighters and other people, nurses and doctors and whoever, for refusing to take the poke. Now they need to hire them back, that there's no longer a mandate, and they're not going to do it because of budget cuts, because of the illegal immigrants. This is probably one of the most painful exercises I've gone through, Adams said in a statement. When you look at it around police, what the numbers of police officers are going to be, and how we've done so well in dropping crime in our city, that's not true. When we look at the school safety agents whom you fired, when we look at some of the other initiatives that we're doing, telling parents to suck it and volunteer if they're so worried about it, it's going to be extremely painful for New Yorkers, but not for me, because I'm the goddamn mayor. The administration is also expected to cut the New York Police Department's next police academy class, even as it struggles to replace nearly 3,000 uniformed officers who have retired or quit since 2019. And again, a lot of them quit or were fired because of the vaccine mandate. The New York Police Department is also expected to reduce overtime pay. This is going to turn the New York Police Department staffing crisis into a public safety disaster. Police Benevolent Association President Patrick Hendry, and it is Hendry or Hendry, Hendry is most likely, told the New York Post, our police officers are being worked to exhaustion and 911 response times are already rising. What's going to happen when no reinforcements arrive for months on end? Cutting cops puts New Yorkers at risk, period. You know what they'll end up doing is putting the National Guard on the street. The National Guard's already on the street there, but all they're doing is paperwork, processing migrants. The National Guard in New York is essentially being used as glorified social workers. Adam has claimed the migrant crisis, which has seen a flood of more than 110,000 immigrants enter the city since the spring of 2022. More than that, I'm sure. Will cost the city $12 billion by 2025. I'm sure they've already spent that much and affect every aspect of the city. The state of New York is seeing more than 10,000 immigrants enter its large city every month. The city's not that big that it can contain it all. Not that big. Let's see here. And Urban Angst is here. Late, but that's okay. Glad you could make it, Urban Angst. And Fluke Man says, shame Trump isn't going to investigate the IRS if he becomes president. He needs to. He needs to. I've said it many, many times. The IRS has not been under investigation since the Reagan administration because he had a beef with them. Dragon says, gotta love the sweeping New York City taxes. With everything around in New York City getting worse, people are just going to move out because people don't want to live there anymore. They should. And John's Life says New York City's been a shithole for ages. Yeah, unfortunately. And Stefan Riley has made it. Glad you could pop in today. Helta says the first step is to get rid of Adams. Hey, you're not that far from it. Wait till you see this next article. His incompetent cronies who are extremely unqualified for the positions they were given, New York City would save at least millions. Remember, just about everybody surrounding Adams has been arrested or investigated so far. And it's going to get more interesting here in a minute. Sven says the UN will come in and save them. Peacekeepers, y'all. Hey, there's always been, whenever blue helmets show up, it's always a mess. They are the worst. Urban says pretending crime isn't happening is not the same as crime numbers being down. If police are refusing to come out to minor incidents, it doesn't get counted, right? That's true. Shameful liars. Another example of equivocation. We talked about that earlier. Gary says artificially created crisis in order to justify cracking down and spending more. Indeed. Yes, indeed. We're not done talking about Adams, though, since you brought it up. And like I said, nearly everybody associated with him has been investigated, arrested, something. Check this out. This is another one from State of the Union. New details emerge in FBI criminal probe into Democratic Mayor Eric Adams. He's under investigation from the FBI now. This just happened the other day. The federal criminal investigation into New York City's Mayor Eric Adams' 2021 campaign focuses on whether he pressured fire department officials to approve a Turkish government construction project despite safety concerns. How weird is that? FBI agents seized Adams' electronic devices as part of a probe into potential illegal campaign donations. Adams allegedly intervened to allow the Turkish government to occupy their new high-rise consulate despite fire safety concerns. As a borough president, part of my routine role was to notify government agencies of issues on behalf of constituents and constituencies, Adams said in a statement. Or constituencies, excuse me, I mispronounced that. I have not been accused of wrongdoing, and I will continue to cooperate with investigators. After learning of the federal investigation, it was discovered that an individual had recently acted improperly. In the spirit of transparency and cooperation, this behavior was immediately and proactively reported to investigators. The mayor has been and remains committed to cooperating in this matter. Adams' campaign attorney, Boyd Johnson, has said. Now, what happened? This is what prompted this article right here. On Monday night, the FBI approached the mayor after an event. So they knew where he was going to be and they cornered him. The mayor immediately complied with the FBI's requests and provided them with his electronic devices. The mayor has not been accused of any wrongdoing and continues to cooperate with the investigation, basically at this time. Adams has been quoted as saying he has nothing to hide and that he has not been accused of any wrongdoing and he'll cooperate with investigations. There's something going on when the FBI corners you at some event that you're speaking at or whatever and says, give us all of your phones now. Okay? You don't just shrug that off like there's no big deal. There's no shrugging that off. He's in enough trouble. He's under investigation by the FBI. So is his campaign manager. Um, Again, he was also connected to that bling pastor who was arrested for fraud a few months back and identity theft. He had already been in prison for identity theft. There's a couple of other people I can't remember off the top of my head, but he's surrounded by corruption. It's incredible. And yeah, the FBI doesn't just corner a mayor of a major city like that and say, give us your phones, and nothing's wrong. I haven't been accused of wrongdoing. It's implied. It's implied. We'll see what happens. We will see what happens. Monkey says, I'm worried about how people are going to vote in. Democrats are really for this place even worse, even after seeing what's going on. Are they still going to vote Democrat? Some people might. Dragon says, strange how all of this is happening when Adams was trying to tell people south of the border to stop coming north. Sven says he spoke out of turn. Yeah. And Fluke says UN, peacekeepers, I guess you mean, are shitheads. We're paying part of a something slave group in Eastern Europe. The whistleblower was threatened when she tried to save them. You can't trust the UN. I don't trust the UN. I don't trust blue helmets. There's been a lot of nasty business associated with blue helmets whenever they've shown up anywhere in the world. Really vile criminal stuff that they've been associated with whenever they've been there. As we move along, all the way to Texas. We'll jump down to Texas, and this one comes from the National Review because Texas has passed that bill that they were talking about. Texas passes bill allowing state police to arrest and deport illegal immigrants. So still bucking the system, going against the Biden administration's orders to stand down and let the immigrants just flood into the country. And Texas has had enough. They've had enough, and they are not complying any longer with the Biden administration's orders and making new laws of their own to circumvent them. The Texas House passed legislation on Tuesday making it a state crime to illegally cross the southern border, empowering state and local police to arrest and in some cases deport illegal immigrants. And what the bill suggests supporters claim is a response to federal inaction. Senate Bill 4 gives local and state government the authority to arrest illegal immigrants who enter Texas from Mexico between official ports of entry. Under SB 4, those who unlawfully cross the border can be charged with a state misdemeanor and face up to a year in prison. A felony charge carrying a maximum sentence of 20 years can be leveled if illegal immigrants are charged with additional crimes or don't comply with the judge's orders. Youch. And I guess the alternative then would be, well, go to jail or go back. And which do you think they'll do? The bill also authorizes state judges to deport illegal aliens to Mexico rather than pursue prosecution under federal law. There it is. So that's what I was just speculating on. After getting approval from the Texas Senate last week, the latest version of SB 4 now heads to Republican Governor Greg Abbott's desk, where he is expected to sign it into law. Critics argue that the bill runs afoul of a decades-old Supreme Court ruling, Arizona versus U.S., which forbids states from implementing their own immigration laws. That responsibility is left entirely to the federal government, but Texas Republicans believe the ongoing border crisis necessitates state action. Don't make it just because they're Republicans. I'm sure the citizens of that state, this is what they would prefer because they're getting crushed. Republican State Representative David Spiller, a sponsor of the landmark bill, said SB 4 intends to stop the flow of illegal immigration and that it's not designed to prevent legal migrants from lawfully seeking asylum in the U.S. The state lawmaker also claimed SB 4 is constitutional because it is not in conflict with Arizona versus U.S., despite Democratic claims to the contrary. SB 4 intends to challenge the decades-long holding of Arizona versus United States, given the new makeup of the United States Supreme Court, which we have seen has already overturned the 50-year-long precedent of Roe versus Wade. Democratic State Representatives Victoria Neve Criado said Spiller argued he's not attempting to overturn the Supreme Court decision. And Roe versus Wade was overturned because it was a sham anyways. That woman wanted a divorce, not an abortion. Anyways, preparedness says, good to hear that Texas has some kahunas or cojones. Absolutely. And Fluke Man says S3X is slaves. I understand. Okay. And Merv says, stay alert and stay strong. Indeed. Watch your six, ladies and gentlemen. Urban says the UN is basically the policy arm of the M Brotherhood. But there you go. Texas bucking the system, fed up. It's costing Texas billions of dollars in taxpayer funds. They can't afford it. It's cheaper to do this. It's cheaper to do this. This is what was done before the Biden administration. All they did was write a law to circumvent the federal law that undid what was already being done under previous presidents. Trump, even Obama, was throwing migrants out. Biden threw the gates wide open. Come one, come all, and we're getting everything. You know, there might be some legitimate asylum seekers in there, but it's probably less than 10% of who's crossing the border. The rest of them can get the hell out of here. We can't afford it. We can't afford it. Not just Texas, but the rest of the country cannot afford it. Urban says, can a U.S. citizen also claim asylum in the U.S. with all the perks and benefits, of course, and a 4-star hotel? No, I'm afraid that doesn't work. Doesn't work. You don't get that option. Do you speak another language really well? Maybe you can come across and pretend to be from that country. Dragon says, this is what happens when our federal government fails to protect our borders. It's left up to the states to do so. And that's why states are supposed to be allowed to have their own independent constitutions. I mean, think about the irony of this. Here you have a state government writing additional laws to protect itself from the negligence of the federal government that's supposed to be overseeing what's going on. The federal government is supposed to have exclusive rights to decide what happens at the borders. And Texas had to do this because the federal government is not doing the job. It's not doing the job, and it's harming the entire country, not just Texas. It's hurting the entire country. It's terribly irresponsible and incredibly expensive. And it's burdening all of America's citizens with their tax money, with the negligence of things where the tax money should go. We just saw examples of that with the articles that we read about New York, and how he's taking it out of the police department and security agencies like the school police and things like this, rather than reject the migrants, the illegal aliens that are flooding the city. He is taking money from other sources, borrowing from Peter to pay Paul, and Peter's not going to get his money back. It's being done deliberately to destroy us, is what this is. Monkey says, why can't the federal do anything right? The only thing they've done right is Job Corps. That's my line. Job Corps, I don't have any problem with Job Corps. I don't have any problem with WIC, the Women, Infants, and Children program. There's a handful of like snippets of programs like that I can't say anything negative about. One of my kids went to Job Corps, and it worked out really well for him. For those of you who don't know, Job Corps is a government-run vocational school. Your kid volunteers to go there. He lives in it on campus, and all he does is learn the trade. My kid was there for 2.5 years. And Gary says, almost sounds like the wrong side of the Civil War. Yeah. And again, Texas has, any state could secede from the Union, but we've all seen what happened since you just mentioned the Civil War. Try and secede from the Union and see how they come down on you. They're not going to allow that to happen because they don't want to lose that tax money. It won't happen. And we'll just go ahead and pop back to California. This article comes from California. I'll read one more comment and we'll dive in here. Fluke Man says global population is getting higher, even though the birth rates in the West have slowed down compared to Africa and the Middle East. Yeah. Well, birth rates are slowing down in the West because of the decadence of the West, the decadence of living in the West, and how everybody has been brainwashed into thinking that they deserve everything and that children are a burden and that they don't know what gender they are and everything else. How do you expect us to maintain a birth rate? Then you want to adjust that by letting migrants in, and the migrants wreck everything because they didn't come here to mix in with the population. They came in to take over the population. And All People says it doesn't matter if we can afford mass migration or not. What matters is that a sovereign nation, person, entity, etc., has the right to say no and deny entry, no matter the reason. That's true. There's nothing unethical about saying no, we can't afford it. It's too much. It's too much of a burden on us financially. It's too much of a burden, too much of a strain on our society. We can't help you. It's not unethical to do that. This article comes from the Associated Press. Thousands of California scientists strike over stalled contract talks. So now scientists are going on strike because they don't need to work either. We'll get some of those Chinese ones. They're crossing the border en masse anyways. Sacramento, thousands of scientists who work for California began a rolling 3-day strike Wednesday, the first walkout by a state civil service union. Why is there a scientists union? Forgive me. I can't help it. Members of the California Association of Professional Scientists marched under cloudy skies in Sacramento to protest lack of progress in contract talks. The walkout will spread to Los Angeles, Oakland, and other cities on Thursday and Friday. They don't need you. They got AI. AI could do the calculations. You can all take a walk over to the unemployment line. Oh, wait, you can't go to the unemployment line. You're in a union. The union represents about 5,200 members who work in more than 50 state departments and deal with issues ranging from air pollution and toxic waste control to earthquake hazards and agricultural pests, according to its website. Again, that's all stuff artificial intelligence can do now, and if not, they will in the next 10 years if you get a pay increase, so they can fire you all. Members have been without a contract since 2020 despite bargaining and mediation. The membership rejected a tentative agreement earlier this year. Well, there you go. You didn't agree. You didn't agree. You got greedy and wanted more. Now you're whining. Another state mediation session is planned for November 28th. I wonder how much these people get paid. We're going to see the blowout of some more middle wage jobs here. It's the first time the state workers have struck since civil servants won collective bargaining rights in 1977. Nobody wants to be on strike, and nobody wants to be the first, the union president, Jacqueline Chiak, told the Bee. But it feels really inspiring to know that we have people that are just so fired up about our situation. They're willing to go out on strike for the first time and take a risk. Yeah, we don't need you. Last week, especially some of these jobs that they have, do we need people to be in some of these positions? Let's see. Last week, the California Department of Human Resources filed a complaint of unfair labor practices against the union in an attempt to prevent the strike. On Wednesday, the department said it was disappointed by the strike and that the state continues to bargain in good faith. The state will continue to work with CAPS to achieve a fair successor agreement, as we have with other bargaining units. Department spokesman Camille Travis said in an email, the union's main concern is higher wages. Yeah, okay, that's everybody's concern. It says state scientists are paid 40 to 60% less than comparable positions who have the same level of responsibility and do similar or identical work. I don't know if that's true, and I have no way to examine. I'd like to see what they're comparing themselves to make that type of a statement in the first place. Nature Nerd says money is not an excuse for low birth rates because the poorest countries in the world have the highest birth rates right now, whereas rich Western countries have below replacement rates. Well, that's not what I mean by the decadence. And as far as poor people in like third world countries, what else are they going to do to entertain themselves? And Helter says these people have sold their souls, integrity, and dignity by going along with the biggest hoax ever played on the world. And Monkey says you can look up how much the union has in terms of revenue and assets. Yeah. And Monkey says in certain cities, of course. But yeah, I'd be curious to see what their actual rate of pay is, how much they make. Anyways, I bet it's not a bad middle class wage, although living in California is ridiculously expensive. I get that, but that's a burden being put on people by the California government because of how they squander their tax money. If they had better management of the tax money and more transparency of how the tax money is spent, better control, didn't waste it on worthless programs, didn't shift money around, hide it, pay people off, whatever the hell they're doing, they wouldn't need it. I've always made the argument, and this goes for the entire country, go for any country that collects taxes, that if you managed that money properly, you wouldn't need half as much as you take from people. And then people wouldn't be in this position where they feel like they can go out and strike and carry on. Spectre says bioengineered products in food messes with your DNA and testosterone. That's why the low birth rate. That too. People eat garbage. They don't exercise. I've made the argument several times because I did a video on it a couple of years back. I did a video on it a few years back that, what was it? About the testosterone levels in men and the lack of interest and how they were, I'm trying to remember how I worded it because I don't even know if the video is still up. It had to do with how Viagra and other performance medications like that. Viagra is the only one I can think of off the top of my head. I know there's others. That it used to be the demographic was men between the ages 60 to 80. As I've talked about it before. But the new demographic for people that are on this prescription are men aged 20 to 30. Why do you have men that are should be in their prime in the United States and in the rest of the Western world between 20 and 30 in need of erectile dysfunction medication? Why is that the new demographic? Why are these guys going in? Why have you got a 23, 24-year-old man going to the doctor's office unable to maintain an erection and needing medication to help him? That makes no sense to me. You're in your prime. You're in your prime and you can't work. And Monkey says it was something with 20-year-olds getting Viagra. Yeah. And Frankie says it's purposefully red tape and government redundancy for positions and programs that are unnecessary to tax more. That too. But when you've got guys in their prime who can't maintain erections and have low sperm counts because piss poor diets, lack of exercise, tons of medications that they're probably taking, and then all that emotional confusion that the younger generation has now, you expect them to be having kids? Spectre says it's in 75% of all the foods you get in stores, coffee creamers, Little Debbie Hostess read labels, people. Yeah. And that's stuff I wouldn't eat. Little Debbie Hostess cakes, that's kid stuff. And Not even anymore. I wouldn't let my kid eat that kind of stuff now. When I was a kid, it was made with different stuff. And back then, it wasn't good. Urban says 5 boosters in a year's worth of Viagra. What could go wrong? And that's another thing, too, all the inoculations. I actually have shown my shot record on this channel because people have asked about it. I got like 3-4 things on it, all before 1972 or something. And nowadays, people take so many shots, it's terrifying. They're taking like 25, 30 shots before they're even 3. That's terrifying. What are they for? How is that helping? How is that keeping them healthy? And I see weaker and weaker generations coming up all the time, allergic to every damn thing. Gary says inducing low testosterone levels allows big pharma to sell it in pill form. That's true. And Gary says, are they trying to maintain a normal erection, or are they trying for an abnormally long-lasting one? Let's hope it's the long-lasting one. But you see the point. I don't know. I mean, don't you have to? I don't know. I don't know how all that works. Do you go to the office and prove that it doesn't work? Doctor, watch. I can't get it up. I don't know how that works at all. Gary says it's another way to reduce the population on the front end. And Eric says, I think pornography has really screwed up a lot of the young ones today. It is real ready and available whenever they want. And that's another great point, Eric. Pornography I don't agree with pornography at all. I think it's a huge problem, and it encourages a lot of masturbation. And I don't agree with that either. I think it's an unhealthy practice. It's an unhealthy practice. Basically, it's an adult's way of having an imaginary friend, and something's wrong with that, I think. Oh my God. Look at the direction this conversation went in. As we continue, this is also part of the problem. Have you heard this one? And this is GQ Magazine. GQ Magazine. GQ Men of the Year 2023. Everything you need to know about the menswear's biggest night. And I'll read a couple more comments. Gary says you need an RX from a doctor, but how you prove your need, I don't know. Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, you got to that's going to be. I'm assuming that's still a legal prescription. It's not over the counter medication, but I don't know how that works. I couldn't imagine. Cruising says, think the blue pill is in over the counter as a generic now. There's other guys have a point about it being lasting longer due to porn expectations, also counters side effects of other pills. And Gary says pornography feeds the reptilian complex. These are GQs. You see the picture for those of you watching. Men of the Year, including Kim Kardashian, who is GQ's top Man of the Year. And you wonder why we're all confused. Who on the cover of the magazine, I don't have a picture of it yet, dressed as a man holding a bag of Cheetos, and she's holding the bag of Cheetos because she has to, because of a contract with Frito-Lay. Not kidding. 10 years ago, something like this would have been a joke. And my understanding also is, I don't know if this is true, 100%. I know this is true. This guy, the black guy, is a rapper who does satanic stuff. The other two men on the other ends here, I've been told, are both gay. I'm not 100% sure that's true because I'm not sure who these guys are. I know who that is, but how can she be Man of the Year? Well, let's see. On November 16th, GQ's annual Men of the Year party will be back and bolder than ever to celebrate the magazine's 28th issue, Man of the Year issue, that is. We're gathering the most influential people from across the worlds of fashion, entertainment, and sports in Los Angeles, where GQ's global editor-director, Will Welsh, will be joined by a cadre of high-octane co-hosts who embodied this past year in pop culture. Jacob Elrodi, Hollywood's, I don't know why they worded it that way, Gen Z's white hot leading man, Kim Kardashian, the bar setting reality star turned mega mogul, and Travis Scott, the pivotal multi platinum musician, plus an extra special guest, the menswear legend himself, Tom Ford. I don't know who any of these people are. I know who Kim Kardashian is. All she is a glorified socialite with a reality show who will do absolutely anything, anything, anything for attention, which is why she's agreed to do this. This year's Men of the Year bash is an ode to our current cultural movement. Yeah, I see that. As defined by the stars whose work spans both reality and hyper-reality, whose moves have unlocked new stratospheres of business, clout, and success. El Rodi, whose euphoria momentum has carried him into critic-daring leading roles in Sofia Coppola's Priscilla and Emerald Fennell's Saltburn, Kardashian, who turned her underwear brand Skims into a fashion empire. I don't know anything about any of this stuff. That's all spaghetti to me. Let me see here. Let me get a couple more comments real quick. Frankie says that's because she goes through men's faster than Chester Cheetah goes through Cheetos. Wow. And Gary says Frito Bandito. I remember the Frito Bandito. You can't talk about him anymore, can you? And Helter says if the GQ award shows anything, it shows these editors and media outlets have become outrageously unhinged and out of touch. There's no reason to have this award if anybody is gender fluid. Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. I don't know anything about GQ. I don't know anything about these people other than a little bit about Kim Kardashian just because she's in the news all the time. But again, she's just a glorified socialite with a reality show that people watch because it's part of the bread and circus. These other three people, I really don't know anything about them, but two gay men, a Satan worshiper, and a woman are Men of the Year. Yeah. Mandela effect, anyone? I think I woke up on the wrong planet. And Dragon says Hollywood isn't even hiding the fact that they're messing with us. They're having a good laugh at the people's expense. My goodness, we're living in the Twilight Zone. At least the Twilight Zone made freaking sense. There was a moral to it. There was an ethical conclusion. There was a point to be made. There was a point to be made. Rod Serling had a point, and he used the show to demonstrate to people something to think about. And that's why even today, whenever they try to bring Twilight Zone back, they screw it up because they can't do it better than Rod Serling did it. The topics are still relevant. The acting was fantastic. The cinematography was very well done, especially since it was a black and white show. Angles and lighting and negative space were really honed in on the show, brilliantly shot. And it's still relevant. So whenever they try to bring it back, they can't cope with it. They don't have actors that are that good. They don't have stories that are that good. And they rather be strange in the new ones than talk about something that makes sense like Rod did. And Gary says GQ is alphabet fuss budgetary. No kidding. Flukeman says 2000s UK, you need a doctor's prescription to get Viagra, but now you can buy it whenever you want to. Really? Think it's because the amount of immigrants, illegals, asylum, UK has the health services over woke. That's interesting. Gary says the Twilight Zone was modern fables like Aesop was. But yeah, the original Twilight Zone, it's still a lot of really important points that were made on that show that apply even today by today's standards. So I don't know if we're living in the Twilight Zone, but we're living somewhere, and it ain't my America, Jack. Unfortunately, it is. I'm stuck here like everybody else. All across the Western world, we're seeing this. And I'm tired. I am worn out by it. I don't know about all of you. But again, I'll go ahead and start to wrap things up. Thanks again to Flukeman. Said he's sending some cat food to the P.O. box. Very much appreciated. That means a lot. It helps a lot. There you see Dusty in the background, and you see Miss Kitty has been sleeping quietly on the floor here. Sorry you couldn't get a better shot of her. Yeah, she's still hanging around. Again, this is Coffee Talk. You can find me at Coffee Talk Live is the moniker for YouTube, as well as Prepper University on YouTube, or at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter, if you're looking for me there. Also, check out fistfulofradio.com, where you can find me Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. And I'll go ahead and wrap things up. Thank you to everybody who was able to join us here today. Hope you got something out of the conversation, and we will see you again tomorrow.